接続と。そして、このままも接続と。しまってるはず。来た。さて、始めましょう。前回は、ブレーキングビギンサイファー。課題が終了教材。これ、多言語対応までやったんだよね。ブレーキングナビゲーションサイファー。テストをやると。カットシークレットメッセージ点滴図。とりあえず、コマンドラインを起動する。これで CD ウィークス。テクネハサイファーも、ユークチブル J のエクササイズ案の。ここで、前回までの仕事。よさめ UKL、こっちか。これはこれだから別のを作ればいいってことだな。長。こっちはこのままで、新規クラスのエグザミネーション。クリア。で、エグザミネーション。ポート、10、ポート、ユーティルの、ビーブネーサイあ、プライベート、インスタンスセンスが残して、あと、ユダムビグの中に入れて、えーっと、うん、はい、サイファーブレーカ か。うん。ね、えか、まあいいし、ストリング、グレッド、メス、イコール、ビネガー、バカー、データス、シークレットメッセージ3、データス、シー、ネクスト、エクサメンザメンツは、CB 購入、セミコロンと、とりあえず、イブザメンチ、01、コンバレターが来ました。ありがとうございます。まずは、テスト問題。9.1 から。どうするといいんだっけ。うん、あ、うん、ビネガーブレーカーを見ればいいのね。えーと、ブレイクオールランゲージ、シマップデクリプト。ここはオーバーライドして、ファイル、ワールドして、で、ケア出す。で、ここを、よいしょ。ブレイク、ブレイク。これダイアログ式と両方できると。で、元データのエグザムビュー。ファイル、ソース、FR イコールニュー、ソース、シークレット、メッセージ。一応タイトルを、テスト、ブレイキング、ネルサイで、シークレットメッセージの MyCB のに FR。これでコンパイルして、え、あいい、コンパイル。 コンパイル。じゃあ行きましょう。持ってんな。メモリを作って、エクサをすると。うん。ロミオとジュリエット。一番多いのは、フレンチ。まあ、これフランス語と見るのが正しい。What is the positive message of the great sequence? シークレットジュリエット。これここ。次に、シークレット次がここは、こうか。で、9、3と4。で、ファイルは起動宣言作から4テクストで同じことを入れればいい。うん。うん。テストの、ちょっとわかんないな、これじゃ。セミコロン。49、3、5万4。
ムテイさん、こんばんは。
こんばんはですね。今は、コーセラっていう海外の教育サービスの試験を受けているところです。これで4とあれができるはず。
ムテイさん、ほう。
で、今まで作ったプログラムを使って、暗号を解読するっていうことをやってます。このプログラムのところの、シークレットメッセージっていうのが与えられた暗号文で、解読キーはわかりません。で、解読する方法はプログラミングされているので、それを実行してみて、実際に何か、どこの言語で、どういう文章かっていうのを、ここでやってみるっていうところですね。ではやってみましょう。さて、実行すると、ここか。もっと、これやってよかった。 3と4を割って、ラングカウント。文字列で計算してみて、ちゃんと当たった単語が、ジャーマン69だから、多分これはドイツ語。レイヘクセントリ。全然意味は読めねえ。ドイツ語なんて知らんからわからん。で、ファーストレンズで今のやつと。で、とりあえず、ここまでした書きを保存して、5番。Recall that the choice to test key length 1から100 was arbitrary. The start a longer a key is with respect to an encrypted message. The less likely this beginning algorithm is to work. How long would the key have to be so that you could gain no information about an original message by analyzing the encrypted message? なるほどね。これ今の現状のプログラムで100文字まで計算してやってます。これは、あらゆる、多分、単調というか長すぎるって意味でしょう。任意長さ。1から100の任意長さ。だと、the longer key is with respect to its encrypted message. the less もっと小さくても大丈夫なはずです。この暗号は出てくる暗号も文字の数を数えるやつ。それで考えるなら、26分の1くらいかな。よくわからん。いや、ハーフで最低2回。例えば、100文字として、暗号文の書きが50文字だと。ミスリンクス、これが一番可能性としては安全か。The vinegar decryption algorithm used this lesson has limitation. 限定的ですね、確かに。In which of the following scenario could the program return incorrect results? Secret or that were correct? まず、日本語みたいに文字の辞書が含まれてない場合。The language of the message was unusual letter that is high frequency, not E or A. そう。因数文字が混ざっている場合。The language of the original message has multiple letters of the incompatible high frequency. 同じ英単語が2つ出た場合。The language of the original message when written in sentence has different letter frequency. これは違うと。The language of the original message has many characters not in the English alphabet. これもそうだな。全部じゃないと思うんだけど、これでいいと思うんだけど。Consider the beginner decryption algorithm described in this lesson. Which of the following could be aどういう時に問題を発生するか。今回の論点は、 その文章で A とか E と言っていいますか、発生する場合に、その長さが長いときと、上記じゃなくて、これでしょう。そこの英語使い1、2、3、65点以上だから、これ言って、送信。ああ !1。ここが正解。ここが正解。6、7が不正解か。上4つはまあクイズで、その話、プログラムでやったから問題だし。問題、ここは理解の問題か。もう一度試す。メッセージ連じゃダメだった。How long would Kia have to be so that you could gain no information about the original message by analyzing the encrypted message? そういうことで全部ではダメ。ここまでいいんだ。6. The begin decryption algorithm. 今回のやった use in this lesson has limitations. には限界がある。In which of the following scenarios could not program return incorrect results? Secret or that? 変に間違ってる文章ではない場合っていうわけですね。Consider the Bugnet's decryption algorithm described in this lesson. Which one of the following could be a program? このことならもう一回やり直し。これはさ、ここを見ればいいから、オプション、クリアで分かりやすいように開業をつけるようにして、そして、保存。で、ついでに、こっちの、ブレーカーの300っていうのは長いから、150文字で、コンパイル。これで、実行すれば、1と2、ランクカウント999、フレンチ、ノミニアとチュリエ。で、3、4イン、ジャーマンの、これはタイトル意味わからない。で、この文字列は、エクザクトリここでのことならもう一回書き出すってことだな。 Beginning decryption algorithm used in this lesson limitation. これは違う。あ、そうかなってのできるんだ。The language of the message when written in sentence the different letter frequencies than the sum of individual words in the language. The language of the message when written in sentence has different letter frequencies than the sum of individual words in it. The language of the original message has an unusual letter that is highest in frequency. The language of the original message has multiple letters of compatible high frequency. The message is not included in the text. この3つか。Concept began to decrypt algorithm 今回のこの暗号について、どういう時に The key length is long compared to its message. 比べても出ないんだ。いや、長すぎるとき。鍵の長さが long。メッセージと比べて長い場合。本質はそうか。こうなんだ。これで送信。2が不正解になってる。なんで ?6 と7も不正解あと1回しかチャンスねえぞ。もう一度試す。これがダメだったら、次回まで置かないといけない。フレンチ。ロミオとジュリエット。ジャーマン。イングリッシュでフレンチよ。トレイヘクセン。ヘクセン語の期間とかそういう意味。いや。エグザクトリ。また6なのか。間違えてた。The language of the message has many characters not in the English alphabet. これも入るってことか。The language of the message has unusual letter that is highest frequency not EY. エラー出るだろうか。例えば E とか A でこれは数の多く出てば、それを大きすぎる場合は文字がしても立ってないかもしれない。The language of the message when written in sentence has different letter frequencies than the sum of individuals. まずは本来今、辞書から単変する文字を チェックして出して、ここでセンテンスの数を見ようとしている。元のメッセージのリトンインセンテンスがディファレントで。The rank of the message has multiple letters compatible high frequency. これ違うのかな？こうか。これをこういった6番がダメか。なんとかいった。これは Java プログラミング、コンピュータプログラミング、アルゴリズムってとこでしょ。エクステンド your program が来るんだ。いやいや、some optional ideas to extend your program even further. Test edge case. Edge case refers to special situations where program might break down. For example, constant text files or languages where the most common letters is unreliable and nearly tied with another letter. For example, the original message encrypted in the text file, i.e. the key body text is an Italian, which has letter frequency E11.10%. You could also experiment with the method examination allowable key links. Use a different set of ideas. Try different links text on different languages. This can also help your identity edge case. いや、そういうのをつける。追加してもやってみてもいい。Explore difference statistics. This program assumes one character is the most frequent. Are there other ways to determine the key to a cipher? One possibility to address certain edge cases, such as breaking the encryption of Italian language text, could be to find multiple possible keys to each length and try all of them. Try key lengths might return a needy array. If you find every key length anywhere these are two possibilities to the most frequent letter, there would be new choices and possible keys. Adapt your program to a new problem. This program is focused on the what other cipher could you relate? まあ、いい。エクステンドはなしでいいかな。遅れてるし。ということで、4週目は完了と。何ゲットレディスもいけんだ。うん。で、と、とりあえずここまで終わったってことだな。ということで、始末、落とします。マイナス R、ユーザーフォームは使わないから、Git ステータスで、コミット、コーセラの Java ブロックをやりました。エグザ証明書取得した。やったぜ。 これな。エンディングいくのでいいや。終了試験用に。ビニガーブレーカー。リソースを決まらせるってなんだよ。渡せるように、せいと。えい。これで終わったから、Git スイッチ、メイン、点々する点々の、戻って、ファイラーの方も、おしまい。Git スイッチのメイン、Git マージの、今の Java のやつを、マージ。そのまま Git プッシュ十分か。これを GitHub にプッシュして、今作ってたブランチを削除と。これで、ここがクリーンになったから、次行きましょう。さて、次は HTML ですね。期限過ぎてる。まあ、続き。モジュールさん、コーディング集めて。もうコーディングエキサイティング。出会いというけど、とりあえず、ブランチ、HTML と作っておいて、一応ジャンプになったからやりつつやっとこう。JHHTML。CD。それはジョン・ホプキンスの HTML/CSS です。ここの12までやって、今やってるのは、アサインメントちゃんと見てみよう。 モジュール3コーディングがされてる。コーディング。タイムトゥックはだいたい1時間くらいできるでしょう。Ask a question in this function if you get stuck with all running. If you create a GitHub account that you will use for this class. GitHub アカウントはある。If you haven't already explored the development step video, beginning of module 1, instruction how to create a repository and set it up such that you can host and view your finished web page on GitHub pages. GitHub ページ作る。モジュール3ソリューションを作ってみましょう。とりあえず、モジュール3っていうのは何だっけ？あれ ?3 週目。まだそこまで行ってないじゃん。レクチャー37からじゃん。コーディングメニューカテゴリーズ。これだな。
Okay, so now that we've coded up the front page, the very main page, I think it's a good time for us to review what the navigation structure is going to be like. Well, navigation structure is actually going to be pretty simple. When the user first comes to the front page, they'll have an option to click on this menu button, or they could click on this menu tile and they will end up at exactly the same place. And where they will end up is the menu categories page. So this is the menu categories page, and all this page will do is list categories for us that are part of this menu with a picture associated with it and the name of the category. Now, one of the categories is called specials. Well, that should remind you of something. On the very front page, we have a tile called specials. Well, all that is just a direct link to a particular menu category called specials. So, point is, when they click on the menu, they will end up in this view, which is going to list all the menu categories with their pictures and the names of the category. The same thing will happen if they click on the menu button right here. They will also end up with this menu categories page. Okay, so let's go back to the code editor and we'll start coding up this page. Okay, so here I am in Sublime Text in Examples folder lecture 37 in the After folder. And even though the structure of the page or the pages and the end product is going to be a little bit different once we introduce some JavaScript and start writing dynamic HTML, at this point it's much easier, since it's a design stage, it's much easier for us to simply copy index.html and call it something like menu categories.html. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll just call duplicate. And the reason we're calling duplicate is because a lot of the things that are inside index.html are going to be exactly the same. So the header and the footer and the menu items, they're all going to be exactly the same. It's the main content that's going to change. So we'll call this menu categories.html. Okay, so there's our menu categories.html. We could close index.html. We don't need it for now.
なるほど。これをこっちの方で見ると、フルスタックコースのエグザンブルのレッスン37のアフター。このメニューカテゴリーズ、これを作りますっていうことを言ってるわけですね。しかし。まあ、HTML と CSS とかです。
So now what we need to do is we need to wipe out of the menu categories.html anything that has nothing to do with that page. Well, all the menus, the collapsible things, they all have to do with it. And the only thing that doesn't have to do with it is anything that's inside this main content container. So we'll go ahead and select this. And we'll go all the way down and we'll say here, this is where it says end of main content, very convenient. So we'll press shift and we'll select all of that content and we'll go ahead and wipe that. Okay, so now we're ready to start writing our menu categories.html. And if we look at this page in the browser, well, this one is index.html, but now if we click on the menu tile, we'll actually end up at menu categories.html. As you can see, we only have the header, the footer. There is no content in the page. So let's go ahead and start filling it out. So the first thing we need to do is we need to kind of let the users know what page this is, right? So we're going to go ahead and paste this H2. It's not going to be H1 since H1 is David Chu's China Bistro, but H2, the secondary heading, is going to be menu categories. That's the name of this page that we're at. And we're going to give it an ID, menu categories title. That's going to be its ID. And the class is going to be text center, which is a bootstrap class just to center the text in the middle. So if we save that and go to the browser, we should see a nice menu categories title here appearing in the middle. And the next thing really comes directly from the original menu, and that's just a reminder to the customers about substituting white rice with brown rice and etc. here. This is just, just real business stuff that has to do with this particular restaurant. And again, we're just going to put it in a div with a class text center just to center this in the page. Now we're probably going to style this a little bit. Let's take a look as to what it looks like in the page. But actually, it doesn't really look that bad. We might want to make it a little smaller. We'll see. Okay, so that's basically it for the heading of the page. And now we need to start coding our tiles. And of course, our tiles or the menu categories themselves are going to have to be in a grid. So let's go ahead and try to do that. So let's go ahead and put the entire thing in a section. So we're already inside a container right here, right? So it's a container class. That means we don't need to have another container, but we do want a grid. So we're going to go ahead and create a section with the class row. So we're going to put everything in one row. And if you take a look as to how we want to position this, we want 6 tiles across when it's a full browser. And obviously, as we squeeze it, we want to fit as many as possible that will still look good. But at the same time, obviously, some of them will need to be stacked. Okay, so I know each grid in the cell is going to be a div. We're going to surround that in a div. And I have some code prepared for inside of each grid cell. And I'll go ahead and copy and paste that right here. Let's remove that space right here. So let's go over it real quick. So we haven't really assigned any columns yet to this grid, but this is going to be the contents of pretty much every single grid. So number one is we're going to have ahref to single category.html. So single category.html is really just going to be a generic page we haven't even written yet, but it's going to point to that particular category that's going to be identified by this div and by this picture. So each category is going to have an anchor tag pointing to single category.html, which in this case is just a placeholder page, and in the future will be actually a designated either a page, or we'll see how that works with JavaScript, will be basically a designated place that will show you this particular category. And inside of it, we're going to have a div, and the div is going to have this class called category tile, obviously a custom class that we created, and inside of it, we're going to have an image of 200 by 200, and this is something that we've sized before, and the image source is going to be in images, and actually that's probably the wrong path. So let's take a look at images. There's going to be a menu, and at this point, let's just pick something like b.jpg. So it is images, then menu, then /b/b.jpg. And let's save that for now. And we'll call this particular category lunch, even though I don't think that's what it is. But at this point, it doesn't really make any difference. We're just styling each of these categories that they should fit on a page, and then we'll fill in the actual data later. Okay, so far so good. Let's go ahead and preview it in the browser. And obviously, we could see the picture, and lunch is somewhere to the right, and things are obviously not styled 100%. Okay, let's go ahead and copy this whole div, which is going to be our grid cell, and let's paste it a few times. Let's actually paste it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say that's good enough. Okay, so now we actually have a grid, and they're all going to be really the same. The only thing that's going to be different about them is where they're going to be pointing in terms of the URL in the ahref tag, and where the image source is going to be pointed. But other than that, they're going to be all the same. So let's go ahead and start styling our grid. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to have 6 of these things basically in one row, and then whatever doesn't fit should go ahead and spill over to the next row, not technically a next bootstrap row, but just the next row visually. Okay, so how do I accomplish a 6-cell layout? Well, that means that each cell is going to have to cover 2 columns. So let's go ahead and do that. And we probably want the 6 category layout even at the medium size screen. So we'll do column MD and 2. So if that's going to be the case, that means this is going to take 2, Let's go ahead and copy that, and we'll just insert it into every div. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Let's take a look in the browser as to what we have. Ooh, so we see right away here that this is really going to work because you could see that the pictures are kind of stepping one upon the other. And this is at the full size. This is even at the large size. So definitely as we squeeze this, this is not going to work very well. They're kind of stepping up on each other. So what that means is that the 6-picture layout is really not going to work. So we have to kind of rethink that. So if the 6 picture is not going to work, how about we try 4 pictures across? We can try that very easily by just selecting this 2. Let's go ahead and select it every single place, all across our classes. Selecting this 2 and changing it to 3. Okay, so that's that. So go ahead and press 3. So every single place it changed to 3. So now what we're going to have is 4 pictures across the screen. So let's go ahead and go back to the browser. Well, even though it looks all messed up at the moment, it does look actually kind of okay in terms of the pictures fitting in the screen. So things are kind of messed up here, but we'll take care of that in a minute. Okay, so that sounds about right. And let's go ahead and start styling some of the things inside the actual cell using our styles.css. So let's go ahead and style CSS. And let's scroll down to somewhere maybe under the home page. Here's the footer. Here's the home page. And we'll scroll down right around here. So let's remove that space over here. And let me cut and paste some of the code that I made before the lecture, and we'll go over it right now. Okay, so first of all, the category tile. Let's go ahead and take a look at our HTML here. The category tile is that inner tile inside the A tag. So the category tile is all that. And we kind of have the very same type of structure that we had in the menu tile and the special style, is that we have some text. So in this case, it's actually just an image. And we have a span, and we're going to target that span and position it absolutely within the div element itself. So the div element will be like a relative anchor for the span that's inside of it, and we're going to put it on the bottom. So let's go ahead and take a look how we're doing that. So first of all, the tile itself is going to be relative. Like I told you, is going to be the anchor. And the border, we're going to have a nice border around it. The overflow will be hidden. So if anything is sticking out in terms of the picture or whatnot, it should not be actually sticking out and protruding. It should just be clipped. And since we know that the picture or the image is going to be 200 by 200, we're going to go ahead and style the width and the height to be 200 and 200 pixels. And we're also going to have some margins. The top will be 0. The right will be auto. The bottom will be 15 pixels. And the auto is going to actually carry over to the left as well. So this is that same trick we spoke about before as to how to center something. As long as you give it a width and you give it auto on both sides, margin right and margin left, it will automatically center itself. Okay, so that's the actual container div that's going to have that picture. Now, what about the span? That's kind of the title of the actual category. Well, the span is going to be positioned absolutely, and it's going to be, again, bottom 0, right 0. The width is going to be 100%, so we'll stretch the entire width of that picture. We'll center it. We'll give it a 1.m size text, and we'll transform it again to uppercase. The background color will get to be black, and the foreground color will be white. And again, we'll tune down its opacity just a tad here, so it will be just a little bit transparent to give us that nice see-through effect. Okay, the next thing we'll do is the hovering part. We're going to give it some box shadow, the same type of box shadow that we had on the front page when you rolled over this particular category. Remember, each one of these category items, these pictures, are going to be clickable items. So that's why we need some sort of a visual indication that a person can, or the user can, click on that. And last thing we're going to do here is target the ID menu categories title plus div, which means the next sibling to this element. So let's go take a look what is menu categories title is. Well, it's all the way at the top here, and we have menu categories title. That's the one that says menu categories, and its next sibling, meaning the next element of the same parent. So this H2 has a parent of this div, and the next sibling of this H2 is this div right here. So we're saying I want to target the element with this ID, and I want to target its next sibling right after it, which happens to be right here, this substituting white rice stuff, right? So that one, we want to give it a margin of 50 pixels. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to give a nice separation between the title of the page and kind of its subtitle note to the customers and actual menu categories that are going to be underneath. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and we'll go back to the browser. We can see that at least the first row seems to be looking pretty well, and the second row is something's wrong with it. Well, let's go back to our code and let's take a look as to what we've done here. So they should all be at this point column MD3. Let's see if we maybe messed up somewhere. Column MD3, and sure enough, we messed up. We got to do column MD3 here, and I think that's about it, right? I think they're all column MD3 from there on. Okay, so let's go back to the browser now that we saved it, and now they're nicely aligned. So, and if we squeeze them here, squeeze the browser, they'll get a little closer, and at some point they'll jump, since we haven't really specified anything below MD, medium screen size, they'll go ahead and start stacking. But obviously we don't want them to stack just yet around MD. We want to specify something for the small and the extra small. And that is what we're going to deal with in part 2 of this lecture.
まずはタイトルを普通に作ると。
In part 1 of this lecture, we laid out the menu categories page for the medium and larger screen sizes. In part 2, we're going to start looking at smaller screen sizes below medium, so small and extra small. So let's take a look as to what we need to do next. Well, if at MD there's 4 of them, meaning it is column MD3, so that means that maybe at small we want column MD4. So let's go ahead and select each one of these regions, courtesy of Sublime Text Editor that lets us edit multiple regions all at once. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's say space, column, dash small, and in this case we'll do 4. And we'll save that, and let's go to our browser, and let's squeeze it now and see if it's going to now get into 3. So right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and when it gets to small screen size, it should be 3 of them across the page. Let's get to, there we go, so now it's 3, and whatever doesn't fit just starts spilling over to the next line. So what happens when we go even less than that, and they should stack? And again, there's enough room for at least 2 of them, so we're not ready to stack just yet. So let's go back to our editor, and what we'll do is we'll do extra small to be 6, and that way there'll be 2 of them. Again, let's multiple select every region real quick. Make sure I don't miss any this time. Okay, that seems to be just about right. And we'll do column dash extra small 6. Okay, that sounds about right. We'll save that, and we'll go back to the browser. And now if we squeeze it, it will become from 4 to 3, and from 3 to 2. So what happens if we squeeze it any more than that? Seems like there's a problem here, right? It seems like the pictures are just not quite fitting into this particular screen size breakpoint. It seems like we need just yet another breakpoint just to tell them at this point, go ahead and break it up. So there is no smaller breakpoint than extra small in Bootstrap. So we're basically going to have to create our own that is going to say that when we get to a certain point right around here, we'll want the columns to start stacking instead of continuously staying at 6 columns and 6 columns. So let's go ahead and try to do that. Let's go back to our code editor. Let's go to styles.css, and we'll scroll all the way down here. And in this case, seems like we already have that from before. So we already have a smaller media query from before. So all we really need to do is define one more column class that will actually work for our case. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's call it column-XXS. So extra small. 12. So at this point, it's going to be that the element that has this class assigned is actually going to take the entire grid of 12 columns. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we define this column XX12? Well, one good trick here is to look in on Bootstrap and to see how it defines column XS12, because really it's exactly the same thing as ours, except we are sitting in a different media query than the XS12. So it's really exactly the same thing, but now sitting under a different media query, which we're already here. So let's go ahead and go to, let's copy this, and we'll modify this in a minute. Let's open up Bootstrap, and let's search for column XS12, and there it is. We found this. Let's see what the styles are for that. And here are the styles. And I'm not sure that I understand all of them, I must tell you, because I'm not sure why it needs to be relative, and certainly doesn't understand why it needs to be minimum height of 1 pixel, but it really doesn't matter for me, because I just really want to mimic the same Bootstrap behavior that already exists. So let's go ahead and see if there's anything else that we're missing. What else is there? Oops, I didn't want to erase that. Go and find another one. There's another place here, and float left. Okay, so they're all floating left, even though, again, in our case, I'm not sure that we really need that, but just to be consistent with Bootstrap, I'll go ahead and keep that as one of my styles. Column axis and width 100%. That's a really important one, right? Because without width being 100%, we're not really going to be able to stretch the entire width of the screen. And at this small, super small, extra small screen size, we want whatever element gets this class to stretch across the entire screen. Let's see if we have anything else that we need to look at. And I believe that's just jumped right back to where we were. So that's pretty much it. So now that we defined our column XX12, we could save that and go to menu categories.html and then define on every single one of those elements column-XS12, XSS-12, and save that. And when we go back to our browser, let's see if that's working. So now we're at 4, it goes to 3, goes to 2, and right around the smaller part here, the super small, it should jump to 1. And so it does. It actually is working. Okay, so I think we're basically done with this, and we could go back to our menu categories.html, and really now it's a question of how many categories we have and just basically copy and pasting every single one of them if we wanted those categories to be manually entered in this page. Now it happens to be, as we're going to go into JavaScript, we're going to dynamically output all these things, so it really doesn't matter that they're sitting here this way. We're going to take care of that later. But at this point, it's laying out just fine, and the entire layout of the page of menu categories is working. So we're done with this page, and we can now move on.
レクチャー38。今度はシンクメニューカテゴリー。今のでマルチメニューのページができたから、
Okay, now that we've completed our menu categories page, let's take a look at the mockup as to what would happen if the user clicked on one of these menu categories in the menu categories page. Well, what would happen is that they would go to that single category page that would have all the menu items that this category contains. So let's go to the single category page and take a look here. So we have the name of the category up front, maybe some information underneath, and every single item here in that particular category. Notice that the layout here is one menu item followed by another menu item on the same line, and then it keeps repeating over and over, which means this is probably going to be a Bootstrap grid, and we're going to divide this 6 in 6 columns, so it'll divide the width of the browser nicely. Now also notice that we have yet another grid within individual cells. So here you can see that there's about half and half again, but I would say that this is a little smaller, so maybe 5 and 7. So basically this is going to be one cell of the grid, and this is also going to be one cell of the grid. This one is probably going to take about 5 columns, and this one is probably going to take about 7 columns. So we have a grid within the bigger grid that contains 6 and 6 columns. Okay, so let's go back to our code editor. Well, let's first actually take a look at our menu categories page. And if we click on this will go, as you can see, to single category. And right now we don't have a single category.html, which is fine. There's actually something that I noticed right now. It would be nice to give some sort of indication to the user that we're sitting on the menu page already. Right now it just looks like we're, again, kind of in the nowhere land. So the way we could do that is by going to our menu categories page. And I'm right now in menu categories.html, which is located in examples lecture 38 after folder. And I could find my menu item right here. Let's actually make it capital menu right here. And this is that menu item, that navigational menu item. Well, the way to make this stand out is to give it a class of active. And that's a bootstrap class, and I believe we might have actually overridden this class, or at least overridden some of the properties in this class to match kind of the hover over effect. So let's go back to our browser. It has a nice indication that we're sitting on the menu page, and it's the same type of background that we get on hover over of other pages. Okay, so that's good. So let's go back to our code editor and copy the menu categories page, because all the pages are going to be, again, the same except for the main content. So if we scroll down, let's close up this menu, the images. Let's go to the menu categories page, and what we'll do is we'll click duplicate, and we'll change that to single category. Single category. Okay, so now it's a single category. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to clear out all the menu categories related content out of this, so we have a clean slate to start with. So we'll probably need to get to main content right here. So we'll go all the way here and find where the main content ends. Right there, that's easy to see. And we'll erase all that. So here's our clean slate that we could start coding. Let's go back to the browser and take a look as to what happens now. If I click on one of the menu categories, it should go to single category.html. And sure enough, it does, except of course, there is no content here in the middle. So let's get back to the code editor and start coding up our content. So the first thing we need to do is give our page some sort of a heading. So the way we're going to do that is by having an H2, and we're going to give it an ID so we can nicely target it later of menu categories title. Okay, menu categories title, and class, we're going to give it text center. So we want to center this thing. And the title is going to be something like lunch menu. And this is something that's probably going to change, or definitely going to change from category to category. Now, every single category is going to have some sort of a subsection where we're going to list some kind of message about the particular category. So I don't know what that is going to be for lunch menu, but I do know that I want to text center it. So I don't know what's going to be here, but I don't know, maybe something like lunch is not served until after 1 p.m. Okay, so let's say that's what we're going to say. Let's go back to our browser. So we have the title of the page, and it's a secondary title, H2, because the first title is obviously David Chu's China Bistro. And it says lunch is not served until after 1 p.m. That's good enough for me. Okay. The next thing we need to do is start coding this layout here, which is, about 6 here and 6 here. And I would assume that this is the type of layout we want to have up through the medium type of size of the screen. And the second it gets too small, we're probably going to want to stack these one upon the other. So the first thing is to have these things right here inside of a grid. So the way we start a grid is we're going to need a row. Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to code up a section. So we're going to use a section tag, and within the section is going to be our grids, which means the section itself is going to need class equals row. Okay. Now, why didn't I put this in a container? Well, the reason I didn't put this in a container is because it's already sitting inside of a container, which is our main content right there. Okay, so let me cut and paste some code that I prepared from before this lecture to kind of flesh out the grid itself, this grid cell. And it's a little bit involved, so let me go over it in a bit more detail. So first of all, we know that the actual cell, we want the cell to be about half the screen, or not about, exactly half the screen. And that's why we're saying column medium screen 6, which means that the second it gets to small screen, these tiles will start stacking one upon the other. Okay, so that's really all we need for our outer kind of a cell, but there's inside kind of a little bit more complicated than that. The inside, we have another row, and the reason we have another row is because we wanted to subdivide the picture. Let's go back, take a look at this, and let me zoom in a little bit. So we wanted to subdivide this picture into one cell and take up about 5 columns, and the other part where it is going to tell us the name of the dish and maybe some description of it is going to be a little bit bigger, so it's going to take about 7 columns. Okay, so let's take a look here. So what we're doing is we're subdividing it. The first thing is we're going to have a row, and inside of that we're going to have a column span of 5. And the reason we chose small here is because when the screen is medium or small or large, so small, large, or medium, we want these things to be horizontal to each other. So this cell, it should be horizontal to this cell. And if it's smaller than that, meaning if it's extra small, I'm okay with that point to have this cell stack upon this cell. So they're basically going to be positioned one on top of the other one. Okay, so let's take a look at the picture part of this grid. Okay, first of all, we're going to have a div, and we're going to give it a class menu item photo. And this is something we're going to go over in a minute in the CSS. We just give it a class so we could kind of style every single one of them the same way. Number 2 is, and we'll actually get this D1, this is that number that we want to put onto the actual picture. So let's take a look here. This is the number, and this number comes directly, kind of a number code, comes directly from the restaurant's menu. So we want to make sure to keep that and kind of let it correspond to the menu itself. And the way we're going to position this, if you take a look at the bottom right over here, is very similar to the way we positioned the menu titles and the category titles, is that we're going to make this item a relative, position a relative, and then position this absolutely to the bottom right, which should be fairly easy. The next thing is the image itself. Well, the image, we're going to give it a class img responsive. That's a bootstrap class that lets it stretch out and contract depending on the size of the screen. And we're going to give it the width of 250 and height of 150, simply because I know that that's the image size that we have. We'll give it an alt, just an item for now, and we'll dynamically fill that in later. Now notice that I'm not really using responsive images in the sense that I'm not really substituting this image depending on the screen size. So I could have just made this a background image and then substitute the image depending on the screen size. For the larger screen size, I would give a higher resolution, lower, a little lower, and so on. And the reason I'm not doing this is because it's already a pretty small resolution as it is, and I don't think it's going to be such a big deal to load even on a mobile device over a cellular connection. Okay, so that's our div menu photo div. The next thing we need to do is we need to give it some pricing. And this is something that's not shown here, but this is just simply because we didn't think of it at the time, but we want to give some pricing right underneath here somewhere for this particular item. And that's why the pricing is still sitting inside this grid, this 5-column grid. Okay, so the pricing is going to be just a div, and we're going to give it a class menu item price. Give it some price. We'll isolate the unit for that particular price inside of a span, so we could basically target this a little bit more specifically and make this smaller, so the price will stand out, but the unit for the portion is going to be smaller. And the same thing, second price, and again, unit for the portion, we're going to isolate into a span. Okay, and that's going to be our picture, or picture with some information. The second part, which is going to span 7 columns, and again, it's going to be small because we want it to stack if it's smaller than small, which means extra small. So we want these 2 grids to stack one upon the other. And so what we're doing is we're using an H3, because it's yet another subheading, even lower down the line. And we're giving it a class menu item title. And this is something obviously we're going to have to define ourselves. And this is the name of that particular dish. It's totally made up. I don't even know if it exists in the menu, but for now, that's really all we need. We have some lorem ipsum in a paragraph right below, again with the menu item details class that we're going to code up. And that's pretty much how we're going to finish this div right here, the div that spans the 7 columns. And then we're finishing the div that spans the entire thing, the entire row. Then we're going to close the div that is the row for those 2 items within that cell. And then right before we close the div for the entire cell, we're going to put an HR that is only going to be visible using this Bootstrap responsive class, visible-XS, extra small. And the reason we want that here is, again, kind of similar to our footer. We did the same type of trick there, is that we put an HR just as a visual separator between the menu items, but we only want them when the menu items are going to stack one upon the other, and that's only going to happen at the XS, which is the extra small screen size. So now that the basic HTML is written, we are ready to move on to styling this with CSS. And that's exactly what we're going to do in part 2 of this lecture.
だって、まあね、一からも作ったってことなんだよね。
In part 1 of this lecture, we wrote the HTML for the first cell in our grid. In this lecture, we're going to start styling that cell. Okay, so for now we have only one cell, so let's go ahead and grab this and copy it. So we at least have 2 cells to take a look at in the browser. Let's save that and let's go to the browser. And here we are. So we see that we have our picture here, picture with what looks like an egg roll. With to the right of it, we have our title of the menu and some lorem ipsum text that's going to be a description of it. It's not really styled yet. This D1 is sitting all the way here instead of down here, and this is not styled 100% yet either. So let's go back to the code editor and give it some styles. First of all, let's give the second cell, instead of D1, let's give it a D2 so we can understand the difference between the two. Let's go open our styles.css. And I already have some pre-made styles that I prepared before the lecture. So let's go ahead and copy and paste them right under our menu category styles. Let's go find them real quick. They should be under home, menu categories page. And here it is. So let's go ahead and paste it right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to comment them out. So we'll go one by one and explain them a little bit better that way. Let's comment them out right here. And the first thing we want to do is the menu item tile. So the menu item tile is this one right here. It's that single cell grid. In other words, that's this whole thing. That is the single cell grid right here. So what we're doing here is we're saying I want the margin bottom to be 25 pixels. So basically what we're doing is we're saying I want to separate this a little bit from the next row. Even though it's not technically a bootstrap grid row, it's going to be a next row just because some of the items, or a lot of these items, are going to start spilling over to the next line, and there's going to be 2 of them per line. Okay. This HR here, the item tile HR, should only show up when we're squeezing the browser past, I believe, the small, when it gets to be extra small. So let's save it and take a look at our browser, and let's see what's going on here. Let's squeeze the browser a little bit and see if that HR shows up. And when we get to super small, the HR right there shows up to visually separate the first item from the second item, and so on. So let's go ahead and stretch it back out and go back to our code editor. And let's style the pricing here. Let's remove this down the line right here. In fact, let's actually, those are 2 pricing type of styles, so let's style them together. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is the menu item tile that is followed by menu item price. So the menu item price that is sitting inside of an element with a class name menu item tile. Let's go take a look at the HTML of that. So the menu item tile is right here, and the menu item price is right there. So basically we're targeting this thing right here, this div, where the prices are. So let's go back to styles.css. And what we're doing is we're increasing its font a little bit, aligning it to the right because we want it to align to the right over here, to the right of this picture. So we're aligning it to the right, and we're giving it a margin top -15 and a margin right of -15. So that is probably something that you'll probably see that we need to adjust. In fact, let's go ahead and comment that out just to see what would happen if we didn't have that. Let's go ahead and comment that out. And let's go back to the code editor. Well, actually, before we do that, remember that span that we had, the kind of the unit portion, either pint or quart? Well, we're just making that smaller. That's how we're targeting it. We're saying that inside the menu item price, there's a span, and that span should have a font size that's smaller. So let's save that and go back to our browser. And it looks pretty good. We see that we have the pint and the quart smaller. These things are a little bit bigger. The picture is done pretty well so far. So I don't remember why I coded up these margins when I prepared the code for this lecture. So I'm going to just leave them off for now. Let's go ahead and keep going and styling some more things. So let's go ahead and move this over here. And actually, these two things probably go together very well, so let's leave those alone together. And so what we're styling here is the picture. So let's move that up. Okay, so what we're styling is the picture. First of all, remember that picture is going to have a little sign at the bottom right of the item number that corresponds to the restaurant's existing menu. So for that, we need to make the container element, which is this item photo, menu item photo, position relative. So we're making that position relative, giving it a nice kind of maroon border, 2-pixel border. Again, if anything overflows, we're going to go ahead and clip that, make padding 0, move the margin 15 pixels to the left, meaning margin right will be moved to the left a little bit, and the margin left will leave as auto. So this is something that's going to basically separate nicely between the left side, of our cell and the right side of our cell where the description is. We'll give it a nice margin bottom of 20 pixels or so, and the maximum width of 250 pixels. Let's go ahead and take a look at the HTML of the menu item photo, right here, menu item photo, and you see that we made the image responsive. Well, the image is 250 pixels wide. We don't want the image to be any bigger than that, otherwise it's going to become pixelated, and the layout is probably going to get messed up as well. So that is why we're saying that the maximum width that can ever go is 250 pixels. Don't stretch this element anymore. Okay, then there's the menu item photo followed by a div. Well, let's take a look as to what we're targeting. So the menu item photo is right here, and the div is that kind of corresponding ID of the menu that's corresponding to the restaurant's menu. So let's go ahead and position that. And obviously we want to position absolute. Bottom 0, right 0, so it'll be in the bottom right corner. And we're going to give it width of 80 pixels. The background is going to be this greenish color, and we're going to center it within that div. The text is going to be centered within that div. So if we save that and go back to our browser, we see that it's now nicely sitting right inside of that picture and kind of identifies for us what the menu item is. Now I actually can see that because of positioning of this element and all the margins and all the different paddings that we're having over here, this whole price thing moved down quite a bit. So now if we go back to the code editor, I now understand why I originally put the margin here. So let's go ahead and remove the comments here, because we actually do need these margins to move up the pricing and make it a little bit nicer looking. So when we do that, look at that, it's aligned down nicely together with the picture. This still is kind of misaligned a little bit, but we didn't work on that yet. So right now, the left side of our cell grid, both of them, because they're all class-based, so they apply to both sides or to both grid cells, they're looking pretty good. Let's go back to the code editor and continue our styling here. So the description, so let's move that down here, and we'll go ahead and actually remove it altogether. And here's our description. So padding right is 30 pixels. And the reason we're doing this is that we want the content of the item description to be moved a little bit away from the right either element, which is going to be a second cell in our grid, or if it's the second one, then we want to move it away from the edge of the browser. The H3 menu item title, and we're giving it some margin. So let's take a look as to what we're talking about here. So here's the H3. and the h3.menu item title basically says this is the title of our menu item. And what we're doing here is we're giving it some margins. So we're giving it top 0, right 0, 10 on the bottom, and again, the 0 transfers to the fourth location, so to the left is 0. So basically, we're just giving it a margin bottom, really, a fancy way of giving it a margin bottom of 0. And possibly also zeroing out some margins that this item inherited from its parent. Last but not least, the actual menu item details class, we're going to decrease its font slightly to 0.9 ems, and we're also going to give it a font style of italic, so it'll look a little bit nicer that way. Okay, so now we'll save this. I'll go back to our browser, and now it's nicely aligned, and everything looks pretty good. So the only thing that's left is to check out whether or not the responsive part is working pretty well. Let's go ahead and squeeze the browser and see. Well, in this case, this looks all right, and let's squeeze it a little bit more, and this looks not so bad. Oh, and in this case, this doesn't look so good at all. So this is probably around small, right? So this is the small screen size. What we really want is we want this whole item photo. We want it to go all the way to the center, and we want this to be centered as well. We don't want this kind of this going to the right and this going to the left. That looks kind of weird. And let's check out first as to what's the screen size that this is happening at. It looks to me like that's the extra small, but let's just double check here. Let's see. This is around what area? This is 670 something pixels. So that definitely sounds like extra small, because extra small starts around 767 pixels. So let's go back to our code editor and let's scroll down to the extra small device media query right here, the extra small, and let's put some styles that will fix the whole issue here. But first, let's go back to the browser and investigate why this thing is going to the right. Well, let's go ahead and inspect the element right here, and we'll see that menu item right here, and let's see what we're applying here. As you can see, when it's stacking, our margins really aren't really working out. We have a margin left of auto. We do have a maximum width, which is good because that makes us kind of anchored as to what our width is. But the margin right is negative 15 pixels, when in fact, it really should be probably auto as well. If it's going to be auto on the right and auto on the left, this element will naturally position itself in the middle. Okay, so that's as far as this is concerned. What about the description of the menu item? Let's go ahead and inspect that. Let's pull this down so we could see what we're inspecting here. That's the menu item description right here. So why is that on the left? There really doesn't appear to be any other reason other than the fact that it's just simply not aligned to the center. Okay, so we could do that. Let's go back to the code editor. And inside of our extra small screen size, inside of that media query, we'll go ahead and write some styles. So first of all, the menu item photo, that's the first one, that's the actual picture. What we're missing there, we're missing margin right being auto instead of negative 15 pixels. So if we just do that and go back to our browser, oh, very good. So we could see that this is now aligned properly. Now this is still sitting to the right, but that's probably because we just need to center it on the screen. Let's go back to the code editor and we'll go ahead and find the pricing that's going on. So the pricing is menu item price, and it's sitting inside menu item tile. So if we actually go to our styles.css, we could say menu item tile followed by a menu item price. And that's the thing that we'll need to make text align to the center. So if we do that, go back to our browser, and there we go. So this aligned now very nicely together with this picture. So the only thing that's left is to align the description of the menu item. So let's go back to the code editor, and let's go ahead and do that. And let's look in our HTML what is that description. A description is the menu item description. That's the class. So let's go ahead and copy that. And we'll say menu item description, and we'll do again text align being center. Okay, so let's save that. Let's go back to our browser, and now we have both things nicely aligned in the center. for both items. So, at this point, we seem like we're good here. Okay, so we're going to stop here for part 2 of this lecture, and then part 3 of this lecture, we're going to take a look at an issue that often creeps up, especially with the data that you don't control, like, for example, the description of items that may come from the server later and may be shorter or longer, depending on how the owner of the site decided to describe each of the menu items.
さて、続けて、今のページのスタイルを作る。
In part 1 and part 2 of this lecture, we were able to create the HTML and the CSS styling to lay out our single category menu items page. In this lecture, we're going to address the variability of the data that we display through using the grid that we created in the previous parts. Now, before we declare victory over this page here, let's go ahead and add a whole bunch of these items inside the page. So here's one all the way down here. And let's copy that. And let's just make a space. And that's going to be number 3. It's going to be number 4, number 5, and number 6. I think that's pretty much enough. Okay, so let's number them properly here. Let's go all the way to the top here. And the first item is D01. Then the second item is going to be D02. The third item is going to be D03. And the fourth item is going to be D04. Then D05. And finally, D06 right here. So if we save that, go back to our browser, we could see they're very nicely aligned. So, it's the menu items are very nicely sitting here. So if we squeeze the browser, let's see if they all align very nicely. Yep, they're all nicely aligning and finally collapsing nicely as well. And if we collapse it all the way to the smallest screen, extra small, so they're all nicely collapsing all the way through. Even we could see our footer that we did before. Okay, one thing to test, and this is a very good thing to test whenever you have content that you really have no control over. In other words, I really have no control as to how large this description is going to be. It's very possible the description is going to be pretty short, or it may be that this description will be pretty long, and I don't know what happens when this description gets taller than what my kind of row or this imaginary row right now looks like. Well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Let's take a look. So let's make, for example, the very first item's description much bigger. So let's go back to our code editor. Let's go back to number 1 item in our menu right here, and let's just copy and paste this a couple of times. Copy and paste the description a couple of times and save that. Let's go back to our browser. Oh, and take a look. Number 3 is now kind of been pushed all the way to the side. It should have been sitting right here. Number 3 should have been sitting right here. Number 4 should have been still in the second row. So things are kind of messed up. So how do we take care of this problem? Well, there's a couple of ways of taking care of it. Number 1 is you could restrict what this text field is going to be like. In other words, you could say that only so many characters this is allowed to be, or we're going to cut it off. We're basically just going to clip whatever it is that doesn't fit in here according to our specifications. Now, this is a pretty rigid approach, and it's kind of hard to come up to the business owner, to the restaurant owner, and say, well, your descriptions can be longer than this. Even though it's really actually a good idea to kind of make them tight, nice and tight. Nobody wants to read very long descriptions, but at the same time, if our layout is now dictating to us how large a particular description of a menu item is going to be, that sounds a little strange. So instead what we could do is we could fix this whole layout problem. Now, why is this layout problem even happening to begin with? Well, as you remember, the grid layout in the Bootstrap, at least in the current version, is based on floating elements. So all these elements are being floated to the left. Well, what happens when element floated to the left and something in front of it kind of gets too long? Well, it kind of starts wrapping. In other words, it can't really fit in this row because it's, this thing is protruding over here. So the very next spot that it could fit is right here. And then this number 4 element tries to float to the left of this, and it can't because there's no more room, so it goes to the next line. If you go back and review the lecture on floats, this is something that we dealt with, and remember the clear property. And this is basically what we're going to need to do here, except Bootstrap pre-baked in its grid system a special clear fix that kind of takes care of these problems. So if we go to the Bootstrap website, and right now we're in the grid system portion of it, you can see here it says responsive column resets. Well, what this is referring to is this specific problem where one column becomes bigger and the rest of the columns kind of get messed up. And it's telling you here that in order to fix that, you need to add another div to your grid. And this div basically has a class clearfix and then a qualification as to when this whole div should even show up. In this case, for example, they want them only to show up visible XS block, which means if they only want it to show up when the screen is extra small. In our case, let's take a look. It really is happening on a large screen, and is it happening on the smaller screen? Well, it's even happening on the medium screen here. But if we get to this part, since we're already stacking it, this doesn't make any difference. So basically on the small screen, it's not a problem, but it is a problem on the medium screen and definitely on the large screen. So we could fix that by putting this type of a div right inside of our grid. Let's go back to our code editor, and basically this is number 1, but we need it right after number 2. So number 2 is the one we need to clear. So right after grid cell number 2, we're going to put a clear fix, but in our case, we want it to be medium, and we also needed to repeat it and have the same thing show up when it is a large screen as well. So LG. So if we save that and go back to our browser, let's take a look at our website, and we could see here this cleared very nicely. And of course, we need to repeat this and insert this div after every second cell. So we inserted one after this one, and we need to now insert one after number 4 and after number 6. So let's go back to code editor and let's actually do just that. Let's copy this div right here, and after this is number 3, so we needed to insert it after number 4. Here's the number 4. Let's go back right here and insert that there. So now if any of the descriptions of number 3 and number 4 get out of hand a little bit, we're still going to be good in terms of the layout. And also we need to put this after number 6. Here's number 6. Let's scroll down a little bit more. And we want to make sure not to make a mistake here. Right here after number 6, we'll insert that div right there. And let's go back to our browser. And as we could see, things are still laying out just nicely. If we squeeze this and make this a medium size, they're still laying out nicely. So the whole row kind of gets pushed down. Row number 2 kind of get pushed down and still nicely aligned. So you can see 3 comes before 4. It's not floating in the wrong way. And everything else looks pretty good. Okay, so that concludes our single category page and really concludes the layout of the entire site. We're basically done. The only thing that's left to do is now dynamically insert the content that we need to insert into every one of these spots here under menu categories. Right now we only have lunch here, and it's just sticking some random picture here over and over again. Obviously we want to have all this work much more dynamically, but as far as the layout is concerned, we're basically done.
This thing may be bang on the other floor.
Okay, so before we proclaim a complete victory over our layout, let's go ahead and test this website on a real phone. So I have here an iPhone 6, and I'm going to load up the site on iPhone 6, and let's go ahead and click around and see if there's anything that we notice that we might need to fix. Okay, so here I am on my iPhone 6, and this is our website, the front page of our website. Let's go ahead and scroll around a little bit to see what it looks like, and it seems to look just fine to me. Let's go and click on the menu tile, and it should take us to the menu categories page, and it does. That seems to work pretty nicely also. Let's click on one of the menu categories, and that will take us to the single category page, which shows us menu items one by one, and that seems to work pretty well as well. Let's now go ahead and tap the phone number button and see if it's going to try to make a phone call, and so it does. It is trying to make a phone call. Let's cancel that. And let's go take a look at the menu here on the top right. If I click here, and then the menu shows up. So if I click on the menu, it will go to the menu categories page. So let's go back to the single category page, and there it is. And let's go ahead and open up that menu. One thing that bothers me about it is that there is no home navigational menu that I could click. It's only menu, about, and awards. And even though in the desktop version, we'll probably get away without it, and we don't want to crowd the desktop version. But for this, we'd like to really have other options other than just tapping on the David Choose China Bistro, the actual restaurant name, in order to get back to the home page. So I would really like to have the home page selected right here. There's another thing that's a little bit weird. If I, for example, tap on lunch menu and try to select the lunch menu, it really would be natural for me to assume that my menu, my drop-down menu, really should automatically just go ahead and go away. But it doesn't. It only does that if I actually tap on the menu button. Well, that is something we're not really going to be able to address right now, because that's something that cannot be addressed with HTML and CSS alone. It needs to be addressed with JavaScript, and we're going to learn JavaScript next. So until then, we're going to leave that alone. But putting the home button in our drop-down menu, that's something that we could do right now. So let's go back to the code editor and add that in. Okay, so here I'm back in Sublime Text, and I'm located in Examples, Lecture 39, After folder, and I'm looking at index.html. And really all we need to do is add another menu item, and that's actually fairly easy. We just have to find our list of menus, and there it is, our list of menus. Each menu is an li, and so we just need to make some space in the front here, and let me cut and paste some code that I already wrote. So we want this menu item to only be visible when the screen size is extra small. And in this case, we want it to be active since we're sitting on the index.html page, so that's the home page. So we want to mark it as being active. So in the mobile view, it'll actually put a line through it, like a gray background through it. And all it is just a link to index.html. And we're also using the glyph icon home. Basically, it's going to have a little like house, little button looking thing. And space home, just to give it some text. So let's go ahead and save that. And let's go back to our browser and click on that. And there it is. Now we have home here. If we go to menu and then we click again, and now it's menu, so we didn't really put that on the menu page, menu categories page. So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's copy that right here. Let's open up our menu categories page, and again scroll down to the LIs right here, and we'll cut and paste right here, except this time we want to remove the active out of here because it's not active on the menu categories page. And the single category page, the same thing. If we scroll down and find our LI list, which is right about here, it's a little jumpy. Okay, here we go. And we're going to cut and paste. And again, we're going to remove the active here because on this page, it is not active. Okay, let's go back to our browser and let's click this button. And here we go. So now we're in menu. If we click home, we get to be on home, and home will be selected. If we go to menu, go to the single category page and select that we're still on menu. That's good. Click to home, and then we get back to the home screen. Okay, so it seems like we've fixed our minor issue, except for some things that we're going to need JavaScript for, and we're ready to move on.
Fixing up the question. 大丈夫？様子プロジェクトのフォーラムを見てくれた。うん。まあ、まず読みましょうと。まあ、こうしたからな、ここは。
ショートプログラム。
さてと、これ終了として次まで。
Well, that's the end of Module 3. Wasn't that fun? If you're enjoying the course so far, we would really appreciate it if you took a couple of minutes and gave this course a 5-star rating. It would mean a lot to us. Module 4 is next. See you in the next module.
というわけで、モジュール3が終了。テストしよう。さて、テスト。アサイメント3に合わせて、ホームページ。Does the implementation using analysis style and there was never implementation such as it's a structure of the system. Does the brand name food or AAC properly align left or neighbor and does it use neighbor brand class? And top the main button is visible when the bottom. で、終了試験を作ろうと。フルスタックネーム、サイエンスネーム D。dir モジュール3。モジュール3のコーディングアサイメント。だいたい1時間できるでしょう。Ask a question in discussion if you get stuck. We are all ongoing through getting stuck and then unstuck, even with someone's help, can be a very, very learning experience. Don't get scared by the number of points below. Most of it is not grounded and it's possible for you to try on your own. Here is what you will need to complete the assignment. If you have already created a GitHub command account, これは持っている。あと you will use for this class. Publicity. これ勉強で全部作ってんだよね。If you haven't already followed different steps with beginning, モジュール1だったり、揃って開発環境を整備してくださいということですね。で、you can host view your finished page on GitHub pages. GitHub IO domain name you will need to provide URL for your page. Create a folder in your repository that modules create module CT モジュール3のモジュール3プラスソリューション。モジュール3のタッチインデックスの HTML。はい。結構、インデックス。ls。作りましょう。クリエイトコーディングモデル作って、インサート作りましょう。The implementation of the page you will be creating should below the mock-up illustration shown below. You will provide 3 mock-up desktop on the tablets, mobile with simple menu drop-down shown. Your implementation has to be just one page. In other words, you will be casting a single response. インデックスの1ページのみでレスポンシブなページを作成する。で、makedir の CSS。Wrapping the type on this page being Your page must include a CSS file. No inline style allowed. Your CSS file should be present in CSS folders under solution container for the edge module solution CSS. ここで OK ね。この課題だったら、You are to use Twitter Bootstrap Framework as much as possible. 可能なら Bootstrap フレームワークを使おう。I suggest you start with copying the starter Bootstrap files after we discuss a lecture 25 part 2. Lecture, if you clone download the code in repository, it should be in the example lecture 25 folder. Copy the content in lecture 25 to your solution contains folder on your solution at the starting point. つまり、エクザンブル、レクチャー25、CSS。続きもさっきから面白いんだよね。とりあえずここをそのまま全部、デリートできたら困るんだよ。なんだけど、go to file、GitHub、これに、PDF が欲しいわけじゃない。ここをそのままコピーして、ダウンロードしたい。アットファイル、ダウンロード。アットファイル、デリートリポジトリ。CSS これいいや。アップは別に使わないもんな。だから、ブートストラップ、min CSS。だよ。レクチャー25のインデックスを見ればいいんだ。ブートストラップ min CSS と、ブートストラップ min JavaScript これをコピーしましょう。つまり、ここを、リンクサンス、エデュケーション、jQuery。NPM いらないな。スクリプト。そして、CSS も、とりあえずは、ブートストラップのメイン。テーマのメインも一緒ですよ。ブドウパンっていうのも昔ながらの。これはすげえや。ラップストップ CSS。 この3つは、これコピー。ペーストだな。ああ、これではできない。どうしようかな。ブートスタップで負けるか。スタックで、ここで、フルスタックコースのモジュール3。コース1モジュール 3? アサインメントレンス。違う。読んでいいんじゃん。エブブルス。これは違う。これもやってる。ここ。ダウンロードしたいんだよね。レクチャー20フォルダー .copy コンテストエグザンブルですね。フォルダー .copy エグザンブルするレクチャー 25? フォルダーの違う。CSS。これでいけばいいんだ。ねダウンロードしたいんだわ。どうすんだっけ。ああ、こういうところで作ってるのはだいたいキノコだ。違うな。コンパイルド CSS。 別に 2.5 度ならこっちを使った方が安全だわ。それか、このレクチャー、フルスタックコース4を、このまんま、こっちか。これで全部ダウンロードしたから、CSS を消して、ここのフルスタックエグザンブル25 BSS。BS も全部。NPM は入れてもいいんだろうな、これは。そして、熟成室か。これで、ヘローコーセラができた。で、やっとこれで一応できるようになったから、課題ができる。これにちょっとまあいいとして、since the agent was for this assignment, in some special everything else that's expected on MD based. I will was created by the Scots variables. で、これをブートストラップでレベルバズにしましょう。おお。でも僕、こっちの方がいい。あ、今リースノートだ。OK ね。いや、多いんだ。本当にうまいんだわ。 ジャルコーチだ。できないの、これは。WJ エディターで開い。違う。G コード UTF-LF。まあ、いつもそういう系のパターンかな。うん。なんでなんていうの。もう勉強中だからそういうの言われても何もできないよ。OK。順番にこれを QR コードで、こういう時のために、ダブルルートの中で、ここのアサインメントじゃない。エグザンブル37 インデックス。なんか ID これ言ったら、リブクラス。これもそのままコピーだな。ここが、あ、おきゅ、そういうふうに言われると納得したくなるところな。F、こう、プログラムから開く。Google と、うん。うん。さあね。オールエピソードだけやんなきゃダメやね。これは、こういうふうにじゃないよ。こっちにも置くなよ。まず、なけどです。これNever should have a company name. I never bank code LLC. んここスパンナー。クラスイコールナブブランドでフード LLC。ああ。あ to left side.
アメリカは圧力を強める構え。
懸念されているのは、
ウクライナとの国境間には、でも10時間を超える。ふるさとを奪われ、避難を余儀なくされた子どもの精神状態の悪化が懸念されることの心配から、インフレ
やっぱりそういうの大事なんだね。
子どもたちのほとんどは、ぬいぐるみやおもちゃを家に置いたまま避難していて、ポーランドに到着した駅のプラットフォームを用意されたぬいぐるみに目を輝かせていました。UNHCR、国連難民高等弁務官によると、ウクライナに置かれた136万人の感染以上がここに避難して、ぬいぐるみの物事を下に飛んでいることを見ると、変わることを願っている。
7年前。
アウトラインつけるのか。やってみましょう。
女性が追悼のデモが全国で。愛知県の行われた同様。
ああ。メニュー。これはモジュールするコンセラートル。ここは一緒。
内には、簡単に税金を活用。ふるさとの住む、すぐ残す。安全 際まではおよそ2住んでいます。すべての住民が避難し、
第2
今も
部と交換をます。公私関係をご覧になって、ヘッダーの次には、
来るのは動物対対策や地域のボーディングありとものが
ラリコン
高
バーの
度さんの記憶に離れています。
取れちゃうんだよね。
長い
やって、ここはそのコピーペーストでよし。入荷リスト、これを全部シャープで、して、えーっと、モジュール2のインデックスですので、
失われつつふるさとの姿を
チキン、ビーフ、寿司だったな。
立てて引き取り箱を記録した
ごめん。ここら辺はとりあえず、いや、チキン、ビーフ、好きし、分け表示を。リバーアイコンもいらない。チキン、BR をスペースいらない。ビーフ。とりあえず、
できた美味しいって
スポーツのよ。本番が一番。埼玉県を通して5歳の長男の遺体を遺棄したとして母親ら3人が逮捕された。3人の容疑者が穴を掘って埋めたと供述し
でも
この事件は
それで、
埼玉県京子容
違う。これ前のやつだ。そして、神戸説明の
3人で穴を掘って遺体を埋めたと供述し男の子は家の和室と男の子の司法解剖を行い、こうしたいきさつなどを書かれています。
一日5分。
で、その
うーん。 でやると、アウトルス、ここ、まあいいやつって消そう。3つだから、これで一緒でしょ うーん。アサインメント、モビルさんわかるっすか？パワークリスタル。
私も、小田さん、彼なの毎日の
その、お父さんって、褒めて、こう、でみたいなでした。もう、初めてす。姿をお父さん見たら、俺もね、手であげたかった。
なんかだ
褒めてば、方言
少し
そうだ。
の方向が
その時はあんまりプロ野球選手とかがなくて、大学に、大学で一番近い学校というか、それが多くあった。それもあって、よく選びました。そうそう。あ、でもまあ、いい。大きく、本当好きだよね。いいですか。
うわぁ。よし。
そうですね。何回かちょっと、その、言ってくれました。すごいガリガリだったので、やったいなと思って、交換
多分、あその時に3人用やるお母さんの涙とか、 これコントロールし、ああ、じゃない。
そうですね。
でかいな。まあ、それだけ運動とかでやったやつだから、まあ、続けるの大変なんだけどね。うーん。
家族旅行、そういうこと、5人です。
お母さんだもんな。
お母さんは普通に生きてるだけです。今の息子をこれ行きまし
ダメだって。
このお店全体来ません。もういないんだ。
まあ、なんと、ちょっと、うちというか真面目なんだけどな。CSS スタイル CSS ってなんだろう。 CSS スタイルです。運動してる大丈夫よ。いやー、夢としては行きたいよね。でも、その、いろいろ思いつかん。これ、あんまり派手な色やだよね。フード LLC。D バックグラウンド。まずは、アズール。コンテンツサイズを大きく上に上げて、
上で、当校は停戦に共通の協業で、この作戦について、ウクライナ、欧米の軍事支援で、ロシアのメディア、情報機部の放射性物質ミサイル製造しようとしていたなどと一斉に報じている。
相変わらず。
ロシアとしては、国際社
そうじゃなくて、どうすんのいいんだっけ。
会、プーチン大統領
うん。いいか。集中力か。ボディ、フォント、バックグラウンド。フォントスタイル。91歳か。
今日も
はい。ゆうかさんです。よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
軍が侵攻したウクライナ北部、キエフのロシア軍
うん、これ悪くない。スタイル CS 自分で考えるの大変だから。これをコピーして、
に軍はウクライナ東部や南部などで攻勢を強めていて、対応続いています。ACR とで言いますと、今回の軍事侵攻は をほら、座に当たって尖ったと受けが、今そちらはどうなっているでしょうか。ウクライナとの国境を越えてきた人たちが、
先に、
集まる場所になっていてです
ナビガーメニュー。これを表示させるのは、まあそこは、
このため、避難によって、という人も少なくありません。
ちょっと非難されるところではあるんだよね。
ヘルソン、グレントさん。出てきた。
で、ここの場合については、ここは CSS コードですけど、
絵が変わり、
無理。37ぐらいまで入れとかないとダメだ。うん。ID ナブ、ナブ、ナブ、ナブが。ナブ、ナブが。これは、そっか、一番誰っていうわけで、自身アップするとレビーのか。自身アップするとフロート F とか。
のプラットフォーム。
僕、犬ぜ、こんなことで。Це було 7 дня 2022 24 лютого у нас почала розпочати. Моя дітка легко не приїде. І я
これどうぞ。ありフロート間レバー、まず、外して、コントベートワールド。これは一番だから、これも外して大丈夫。その代わり、ずころ、いかない。12今多いから、大丈夫かな、プラスイコールのアビバデフォルト。ウェバーバーブランドがこれで、
人たちはですね、発散するにつれて、ウクライナにいる家族に、その戦闘に参加している人、早く戦闘が終わってほしい。多くの家族を引き下げたをやられていると思います。効果がその特集は、
ここはこれでよし。次。
原発をめぐる議論にも、
原油などエネルギー価格が高騰しています。リーマンショック13イランは
1px レッドと、これでボタンが、待ってよ。1234、1234。
ロシアはですね、県の国で、に、今出てきました。県が、ガスを主なパイプライン、ね、これそして、ヨーロッパ、そしてですね、もう、ロシア産が占める割合が、
1% 保証されない。
はい。もうロシア産。
こっちから先行こ
ヨーロッパ全体、
う。これは、うん。
必要なんじゃないか
プラスイコール、
ないと、風を、防がないと本当に寒くて、耳がと
ですね、出てきました。電の強く発電、議論が、これどういうと、ヨーロッパ総局の有馬記者に出てきると、有馬さん、原発をめぐってですね、ヨーロッパで例えば議論が起きているでしょうか。
うん。
本当にロシアの時に原発はどれだけ強くなす、そんな議論。で、その間よりは、本当に優しく考えられて活用されている。ガスをロシアから調達 されながらも、判断されて、
まあ、メインメニュー。
で、原発に必要な分野のエネルギーが考えられて、的にどうかという声が大きく。もちろんヨーロッパでも福島大と関係、ドイツの原発でも、ロシアからは、ウクライナの危機は原発をどう考え、そのヨーロッパの議論に大きなインパクト。また、ではですね、がそのためにどんなエネルギーが役立つのか、大きな議論が、
まあ、メニューとして、こう、
それが、こちらです。EU は、上ながら原子力発電が気候変動今、フランスで起きて変化を取材。
発関連の工場を訪れたフランスのマクロン大統領。6機を
こうすると、
いました。これは劇的なの点を含めて20万人が働く第一の後、オランダ原発への依存は加え、リストラをした中で示された10年ぶりとなるエネルギーが必要だと小型の次世代原国に1億円以上を投資する。業界の人材募集もないところで原子力研究所でフランスでは福島第一原発の事故の後、原発についてという学生は大きくしています。新たな方式にて、技術者と1300人の現代の発生の技術者につながると期待。
原子力
強調され
気扱いとかね。
原発が伝える場は、いわゆるゴミのフランス政府の 再処理施設、各地の使い量が全て燃料、いわゆる再処理を行って原発の燃料として利用している。特には再処理されない使用済み燃料が施設に捨てたまま、使用済み燃料から出る高レベル放射線で、いわゆる核のゴミの施設に割り続けています。住民の理解を得るのに時間が必要だとして、ゴミの回収処分場施設では、保管場所を増やすため、拡張工事を計画。地元の住民からは、反対。
流れがです。美しい。守らない。
マクロン大統領が打ち出した原発の建設。住民の反応は、核のゴミの問題を解決しながら原発を増やすのは、
原発はクリーンなエネルギー説明での火の管理など話がないのです。問題すべて次の世代です。
ご紹介処理と工事に向けてついてですね、人たちの理解を得られるように説明をし
貢献というによってこちらは見事のです。では、ポーランド、オースト
の原稿を止めて、脱原発。今回のウクライナ情勢は、ロシアの場合、何か、そうするヨーロッパでもロシアの、を取り巻くエネルギー事情で、ロシアのエネルギー今度は国に出ます。フランスのように原発を国の基幹業と位置づけているのもあります。今回のウクライナ危機で、ヨーロッパ全体がでのに加えて、脱ロシアという法律を迫ることに、実は、フランスが原発推進それと同じように、今回のウクライナ有事がエネルギーの安定という観点から 原発をどう活用するのかという議論を低下させることに、ただ今回、原発が抱える潜在的なロシアによるチェルノブイリの戦火や原発への攻撃です。有事には攻撃対象にされないリスクをどう踏まえるのか、そのコストをどう考えるのか、一筋縄ではいかない課題になっています。
これでメインメニュータイトルがここができたから、ここをポジションアブソリュートにして、
原発の安定への、そして、いわゆる核のゴミの問題への明確な答えの依然として、もですね、手を背けるわけに、1年前に深刻なわけなんですよ。をつけた議論がでした。続いて、世界のです。皆さんの今月9日に行われる韓国要請。ソリョル候補と共同検討のことで合意した。の
あ
40度。までやるのは、
なんでチキンデラー出るんだ。
店員さん。 まれる。
くさび。センターにすれば。てか、チキンが僕の落ちるのなぜだ？文字列の 0.2 よりもさっきから 1.4 円ぐらいですとこ。捉えてないね。
もともと場所が限度がクローズが
インデック。あ、これ持っても意味が入ってる。2つ入ってるからだ。おう。綺麗に入った。ここが OK。あとは文字列。
新型
ボタンが表示されない。おかしい。ここでですね。ボタンがおかしい。ボタンがわかんないときは、
最も高いところまで登ってきました。やはり素晴らしいです。
ブートスラップドクスンテスト。バトンズ、エグザンブ
前と変わらず、こんな
ル。バトンクラスイコールバトンテタイプがさらに、うん、それなんて言いましてもいいんだよな。
ですね。も のリストに。そうですね。それも気持ちよさそうですね。ごめんなさい。日ニュース。コロナウイルスと NHK の再放送。NHK 英語で。
ない。そして消えたところで、これは、意味はない。だって、じゃあこれは元のこっちに戻すか。ブートストラップじゃなくて、インデックス。この、いいとして、
こんなの。こんなの。6時45分になりニュースをお伝え。東京大空襲から10日で起きたロシアによる軍事侵攻、戦争、平和の尊さ、
ウィーフ。
コロナの影響で、その150人が駅の気温
これでどうだ？表示されればいい。断表されない。
や子供が戦争の悲惨、海外の必要があります。
押されない。
埼玉県
クラシックの岩場ところ。
およそ1週間後に訪れ、広京都元容疑者の
嘘だ。 プラスイコールナビバーバーと、
なんとかできなかったかな。警察が。
あと、ファイルフォーム。インカオプションズ。サイズ。
を踏まえた新たな基準で集計した同時点で110人は感染が確認された4人が死亡した県の感染者数。香川は393、4191、茨城は1004、今は
さあ、こういう時はこういうところを参考にするしかない。特性コラプス。これでやったとこだよな。データトグルイコールコラプス。
警察と消防がパラリンピックのフェンス
一回閉じて、
村岡は昨日の
ここ出なかったです。ここも一回最初からやんそうです。そうだ。というわけで、アリストは、S、10。インデックスで消して、まあ、こっからやり直すってことよね。ダメなら最初から。さて、これも最初に戻っていることは、これが全部ヘローコースラになって、ヘッダー、ナブヘッダーアイコン、ナビディブクラシックコンテンナ、ディブク ルバーヘッダー。ここまでコピー。ナルバーヘッダーに。おこれはまあ汚い。
全国の気象で雪が降りそうです。大雪の今夜の
で、ここで、この校舎スタールコップは消え、ここが、シートなる。で、スタイル CSS。
雨で夜にかけて太平洋側を中心に
マップ。ミングラス。これいいでしょう。ああ。ワークスプレイスエデュケーションやってみます。こうする。で、ここで、ナビゲーションを、ダウンナビの次に、ポスタバトン、コンテナンス。コンテナンス入れるんだな。
にかけて日本海側から雪が飛んできています。夏を今ちょっと見てみて、冬は雪になっていて、このかけて雪が
この権利は、まあ、いや、基地の残るかないのか。で、ヘッダーで、違う。これやるのいけないんだ。ナビゲーションだ。コンテナさんに入れなきゃいけない。こうなる。そして、同じ高さだから、これもこうコピーして、これどうかな？ナブリストのバーライフにここを全部シャープにして、グリフは消す。で、いい。このグリフも消し、
気温です。気温は大体同じくらいです。南部の沿岸で山はもっと低い。京都大体13度というところが多いです。日中、北寄りの風のところが多いです。陸上の中は一応南部で始める。
こんな部分をやらない。
南部で大きく
これで保存すると、まあ、大きさに立つこのメニューが入った。そして、大きさが入れば、メニューが出る。よし、OK。で、AR クラス内これです。これは、コントロール C として、事業に求める。
展覧会では、全国の障害のある人から寄せられた実験の使用書。今日は無料。それからの
そしてスタイル。フォークシャドウは全部入れてみましょう。これは元のやつを見ればいい。ボックスバーサイジング、ボックス、ボーダーボックス。これは一応入れておく。
キエフの合意をめる
ん
ウクライナ軍に実感で作った程度などいいや。決まっていると見られるその周辺では、すでに大きな被害が出
よし。一つ一つ順番に。コード LLC の一幅は消さないと。これは、まずはヘッダーのシワの CSS を消せばいい。こうコピーして、
クライナの東部や南部では、ロシア軍が攻勢を強め、ロシア国防省は5日、南部の都市、ヘルソンとウクライナ
オールスタイル。
掌握し、ウクライナ軍のものとみられるテントや、
なら、グリーンは使わない。
ヘルソンはロシア軍の面した最大の港湾とオデッサまでの中間に位置していることだ。
うん、アッパーケースはいらない。ボールも。
の制圧を目指し、ヘルソンからオデッサへ進入する可能性が指摘される。
英語が。これ、時間的に時間だからな。途中だけど、ここまででやる？クラスイコール。
攻撃が収まっていないとして、避難が延期。地元の当局は、市民のすると、が各地で続くロシア国連の弁務官事務所は、
ここで表示はしなくていい、させなくていいんだね。
市民の危険が
ビーフチキン寿司。これは、切っていいんだよな。チキンビーフ寿司だった。ここは入れ替えればいい。うん。
貿易です。例えば、ウクライナのオデッサを出発。ルーマニア、スロバキアを経由して、ウクライナ、
どんだけやるんだったらこのアイコンバーは入れてないはずなんだ。違うかな。うーん。これは違うか。ボタンに表示させる方。これバトンをレバーヘッダーの中に入れてもいいんだよね。あとはこれ。あとこの、この間に消せればいいんだから、ヒドゥンでいいんだな。
協議を前に、ロシアのプーチン大統領です。ウクライナがプーチン大統領が女性デーを前に、女性たちとの会合に。
これで、表示。あ、ダメだ、レスポンスする。ということは、このヒドゥンを使えない。
ロシアの脅威に
どういう時に消せるかだな。
ロシアの複数の国営メディアも、
MD、
情報筋の話として、
LG、スモールサイズ。で、どうだ し。1、2、1つ。いいでしょう。これでいいかな。よし。これ一回やって、ここまでにしとこう。
その後、大統領とロシア大統領府は、プーチン大統領がする予定だとして、トルコのエルドアン大統領が、攻撃とます。仲介の話、イスラエルのベネット首相が大統領とそれぞれ会談して、仲介に
コーナーがなされる中で、ベネット首相が中心、そして双方で会談が進む非常に注目する動きである。もともとウクライナは、ベネチの多くが、先日、エルビト投稿士との地域を受けたと、具体的なユダヤ人口の中間声は上がっ
ですよ。先ほどのルートの話、どうでしたけど、プーチン大統領が、ここまで耳
にくいと。ウクライナのが軍がしたいです。しかし、ロシアメリカが仲介
というわけで7時も過ぎてるし、ここまでにします。
そういう意味では